And so when we open to the spontaneity of life, there's a glorious surprise in every moment. There's a deep relaxation. There's a releasing of control. There's no longer a need to know. And there's an openness to the infinite field of possibilities where things can happen that you couldn't possibly imagine when we are in that control and that protection, when we're trying to plan how life is going to unfold and hold it to our plan. There's so much that we can miss if we're not open to the wildness and the aliveness of life itself. The invitation of grace is to be wild, to be alive, truly alive, to be alive as life living itself, and open to the field of infinite possibilities beyond what we could possibly imagine. To be fearless and to know that we are supported by grace. In fact, the greatest support available is when we are wild and free. We are fully supported when we are wild and free because we're in the frequency of the flow of life and the grace of God. We can feel like we're not supported when we are holding on too tightly, where we're trying to control and plan and organize and have everything like the ducks in the row mentality. No need for ducks to be in a row. Let the ducks be wild. Let the ducks swim on the pond, dance around in the bulrushes, run around under the willow tree, right? No reason for the ducks to be in a row. Just to notice the way that we have learned to protect and control, and to think that like ducks in the row is a good thing. We need to have our ducks in a row. We need to know what's going on. But then we start to notice that life feels a little tight, a little dry, because we're trying to control it. We're trying to manifest and make it what we think it should be as an expression of kind of like a reflection of who we are, proving that I'm a good person and I'm doing good things. I've got my ducks in a row, right? But what about when the ducks are wild? When the ducks are being initiated and moved by the glory of God, by love, by life itself. And the ducks can do whatever they want. There's free ducks, playful ducks, creative ducks, joyful, delighted, awe-inspiring, innovative ducks, right? Things that we could never imagine if we're trying to hold on too tightly. We miss the flow of innovation and inspiration that is the glory of life, that is free. And we never know then what is possible. So we may not be concerned about that. We may feel like, well, that feels okay to me. My life feels just great how it is. I'm okay with the way things are. But if that fire is alive in your heart, right, to open to the wildest possibilities, do you even know what is the wildest possibility? Do you even know if someone asks you, what is the wildest thing that you could invite into your life right now? Would you flounder? Would you stutter? Would you be like, I'll have to think about that? What would it be, right? Would it be a feeling of like, well, I've got a few things to sort out and get in a row here, but once I have a little spare time, I will consider what could be wild in this life, right? We can have all of these ideas how it's irresponsible. Oh, it's definitely not spiritual. Definitely not spiritual to be wild and spontaneous, right? But the truth is that it is. It's the true nature of spirit to be wild. It's the absolute true nature of spirit and life and grace and glory to be wild. It is just the mind that is in protection that has created ideas, systemized everything, put everything into neat containers with labels on and organized everything, right? It's not the natural way. It's not that there's anything wrong. I like a tidy house. I like everything a little bit organized, right? Nothing wrong with that. That can be a reflection of a clear mind, right? So we're not being critical here, but you know in your heart when these words come as a transmission, what they are lighting up, what they are pointing to, what they are igniting, and what feels true for you. You know if you are living your wildest or if you are holding it back. You know whether your ducks are in a row or if your ducks are free to roam wherever they care to, right? You know, right? And it doesn't matter to anybody else. It's about what your heart knows about your ducks, right? Are your ducks free, right? So when we rest in the deep presence of now, we're open to the possibility of the wilds of life, the wilds of love, just opening up the grace and glory of life to possibilities that we could never have imagined. And the mind can come in with so many ideas about, well, at this stage of my life, I think I've kind of done everything, maybe now it's just the time to kind of wind down, or maybe like, oh, but I have these physical issues, or I have financial constraints, or I have responsibilities and duties. And not true, right? What are you telling yourself? What are you telling yourself, right? There's nothing keeping us bound except our mind's idea of what keeps us bound. And it's also not about having inner judging ideas that are critical. Oh, I'm not wild enough. I'm not free enough. How can I get more wild and free? It's just to be here now. It's about resting. It's about resting here now and following the intuition of the heart that guides us in ways that don't always make sense. And yet the intuition of the heart guides us into magic. It guides us into integration. It guides us to meet and discover parts of us that we don't even know are hiding or not fully integrated, or that we have just put far away. But life knows, grace knows exactly what is needed. And when we stop trying to keep our ducks in a row and organize everything and understand why would I do that? Why? Why would I be guided in that direction? And we just feel the fire and we follow that fire. What we find is that that fire is the eternal flame of life. It's actually vitality. It's life itself, truly alive and right on the edge of its own evolution, right? Like consciousness, right on the edge of its own evolution. Mm. We never need to know why, and we never need to explain ourselves to anyone, and definitely not to ourselves. Just to be in the exploration of, well, this just feels true. There's just a yes. I have no idea why, and I may never know. And yet somehow we may not get the why in words, but we start to feel more integration, more fullness, more wholeness, more freedom. And ultimately, that is what we are longing for. The grace and glory of this life is that it doesn't make sense to the mind's linear way of wanting to have everything organized, understood, and in a row. It's just not the way that life operates. We can't always know in advance how it's going to flow, what it's going to look like. We don't have a yes until we have a yes. And if we don't have a yes, then it's a no, and I don't know, or a maybe. And maybe action can't happen, but there's always a wisdom to it. There's a divine timing to everything. And if we don't know now, then we can make a really big problem about that and try to orchestrate some sort of decision happening. Or we can say, well, I'm obviously not supposed to know right now. So let's just have fun. Let's just see what does want to happen right now, right? So there's this incredible way that we can move with life as life, in the flow, in the current, in the grace, in the glory. We can be so hard on ourselves trying to fit into systems that are wired to keep us under control, wired to keep us powerless, actually, right? The collective consciousness is an organization, like an institution to keep us powerless. And it's not like, there's someone, it's not a conspiracy theory that we're touching into here. We're speaking of the conspiracy of the mind to keep itself in separation, the conspiracy of the mind to keep itself small, the conspiracy of the mind to keep itself addicted to smallness, to protection, to separation, the conspiracy of the mind to settle for a kind of mediocre kind of life, right? And not really fully step in and taste the sweetness that is possible in this adventure of life. I don't know about you, but I'm all about the sweetness. I'm all about the adventure. I'm all about let's go all the way. Let's find out. Let's find out what is possible multidimensionally in this life. Let's make this the most wild adventure. Let's find out what's the other side of the wildest possibility that I can even come up with, right? And we're not necessarily speaking about adventures in the way the mind thinks. We're speaking about opening to dimensions of our own consciousness, our own capacity, that we have no way of understanding or even coming to a mental sense of, oh, I would love to have this capacity. I'd love to have that capacity, because we don't even know what's possible until the consciousness starts to refine, until we rest in the lap of God and glory, until we lay ourselves down in the lap of the divine mother, divine father, the divine union, until we lay in the lap of that which loves us unconditionally. And we discover what we belong to. And when we discover and remember what we belong to, we start to realize that we're being rewired and reorganized. And the edges of what we thought was possible, where we have been believing and holding ourselves in limitation, we start to realize that we have no idea what this life is for, where we are being guided, where we're being led, and what is possible. So we can't even imagine, and in a way, the closest that we can get is to go into, in a way, our wildest imaginings in association with intuition and heart sankalpa of what can we touch into that feels joyous and enlivening? What can we touch into that feels fun, right? What can we touch into? Like, wow, that feels good. And it's not that we're trying to create that, but we're actually touching into what is already here that we're not fully released out of our sense of limitation and separation and division into, right? There's nothing holding us back but our belief in limitation and our belief that is associated with our human life, of what a human life has the capacity for. because we're right on the edge of an evolution which is shifting from the human condition to, we could say, the human being, but we're right on the edge of the divine human, the sacred human, what it is to live with the union, a divine union in the heart that gives birth and activates and initiates the codes that we have wired into our consciousness. And as the activations happen and as we are open and we're saying yes, that we start opening to what is possible in this life. What can we start to touch into? Ultimately, we could bundle all possibilities together to say, we're here to be an expression of universal love. We're here to be the beacon of light. We're here to be the love of God. We're here to be the living frequency of Christ consciousness. We're here to be unconditional love. We're here to be the wild and free child of God, frolicking in the Garden of Eden, to let this world become a garden again, right? To really find out what it is to live as an expression of heaven on earth, to be the living frequency of that expression. And so as these words come, it's not about having your ducks in a row, right? You're too occupied with your ducks in a row, you're going to miss. You're going to miss the possibility to open to the grace and glory that is opening right now. And what that means for each of us is going to be different. What we're wired for is different. And yet the union is in the one heart, right? For some of us, it may be just really feeling free from fear, really feeling the possibility of living free from fear. For some of us, it might be around ways of relating out of patterns of limitation. For some of us, it might be adventures in consciousness. For some of us, it might just be saying yes to the most high possibility that you can't even imagine. For some of us, it might feel like, well, I just would really like to feel like a deep connection to the divine and that I truly am supported. But let us start with our connection to the divine. Let us start in the field of presence and grace and glory. Let us start in the resting. And just open to the aliveness of the field. We might just notice, well, we could say that in the collective consciousness, so many of us live the life in the collective. So many live the life in the frequency of fear and separation, like being in the lobby, right, of life, and just live the whole life imagining that this is it, right? Just move around in the lobby. No, so many just never actually step into the elevator and start. And it's not so much an ascension in the elevator. We're not really speaking of an elevator that's going up or down, but we're just speaking about leaving the lobby, or we could say leaving the departure lounge, right? That so many just rest in the departure lounge, like, yeah, we'll just keep just hanging out in the departure lounge. There's good stuff here. There's good stuff here. But this life isn't about just living in the departure lounge. It's about finding out, is there a fire in my heart to leave the departure lounge and to take off, to soar, to fly, to find out what happens if I leave the departure lounge. Because where might I end up? What might happen? What kind of horizons and possibilities might be revealed? And we're not speaking about satisfying the me in order to get a reflection that's validating or proving myself. We're speaking about really stepping into flowering where the Dharma can be expressed, that we go inwards to rest and remember the resonant connection with God and glory. We go inwards to remember the frequency of truth, of love, of grace and glory, and open to the unified field. But then we embody that, and as we embody that, as the living expression of that, how does that want to be expressed outwardly, right? So we're wired to go inward and reveal and deepen and connect in profound ways with the divine. But we're also wired to embody that light, that love, and to express it. And each of us has a unique expression that wants to live through us. So that balance of the going inward and then sharing it outwardly is where the sense of wholeness comes in, the sense of freedom comes in, because we stop striving to find out what is my purpose and looking for our purpose to be reflected to us by the more mainstream ideas of success and acquiring and achieving within the worldly context. And we start realizing the profundity of, in a way, the true fulfillment of life. And we recognize that the measure of fulfillment isn't external and isn't coming from anyone else, and it's absolutely not from comparison or competition, like comparing yourself with other beings, other worldly beings, right? That might have more followers than you, or might earn more money than you, or might have a bigger house than you, or seem to have a kind of worldly success and ways of moving. It's like we come to recognize that the measure is in how much joy and fullness and glory, how free are you? But that freedom is, we could say, in our sense of connection to the divine, our capacity to be guided by the divine, in the divine flow, our capacity to know that we can meet anything and everything that life brings, and know that we have the ability, the capacity to hold ourselves. So in a way, to meet our own fear and our own doubt. And we know that we have the capacity for transmutation. And it's also about how we embody and how we move in life. How deeply are we moving from intuition, right? How deeply are we moving from a sense of freedom, not a sense of getting permission or explaining ourselves, but we're moving from a depth of freedom where we're in absolute cahoots with the glory, and we're moving only in cahoots with the glory, and we're not looking for anyone to approve of our actions or our movements, but we are the living flow of the miraculous glory that's fearless on a certain level, right? Fearless on the level of not living life trying to belong to the tribal consciousness, not trying to belong to family or systems or constellations around us that give us a kind of approval or sense of validation. And actually the grace and glory of being disapproved of shows us that we're living in freedom, right? Being wildly disapproved of is like, whoa, hey, I'm obviously on the right track. My ducks are not in a row, right? I'm experimenting. I'm free. I'm not looking to belong. I'm not looking for someone to approve of me. I'm just allowing the freedom of life to happen here, and I've got no way of knowing what I'm up to, what's going to happen, where this is leading, right? But just to feel as the words come, what comes alive in your heart? What comes alive in your heart in the felt sense of not needing to explain yourself, not needing to get permission or validation, not needing to adhere to any kind of ideas of what you have been taught or learned, not needing to tell anybody, right? That you're actually free. You are actually free, right? And when you know that you are actually free, then sure, communicate openly, but from the truth of your heart, right? Grace and glory has got your back. Grace and glory has got your back. Grace and glory has got your heart. Grace and glory has got you, right? And what we are in being invited into is like a multi-dimensional embodied freedom where we open through relaxation, we open to the light, the love, the glory of what we are as like an expanded field. But that as we open to the expanded field, we embody the frequencies of the expanded field, and we embody it all the way down to the root, right? So that we're not like floating around as a transcendent fairy. We're not floating around. We're actually embodied. We're deeply actually in our bodies as a frequency, an embodied frequency, where we're right down in the root, we're right in the heart, and we're open as the field of awareness, because that rootedness gives us an inner strength and a confidence that allows us to fulfill our dharma. It allows us to actually move from a sense of sovereignty, a sense of autonomy that's rooted in our own knowing of of our blueprint as a child of God, and that we're not looking competitively or comparatively to work out where are we in this unfolding, that we're moving from a deeper intuition and recognition. And we could maybe say that that deeper intuition is, well, where do I feel the most alive? What is the most joyful? Where do I not feel free? What is happening there, right? What would stop me making a move to just in this moment follow that intuitive possibility without it making sense, without having all my ducks in a row or working out how it's going to work, right? The thing about this dance of life is that it's, to the mind, there's a certain risk involved, and yet to the mind the risk is fearful. It's the mind that tells itself you're going to make a risk, you're going to put your chips, on blue, you're going to put your chips on on green, you're going to put your chips on your intuitive knowing, and you could lose everything, right? Ooh, right. So everything starts to quake, like you could lose everything. Really? You're gonna take that risk? You're going to lose everything. Yep, you're going to lose your relationship, your family, your job, your savings, you know, your home. You could lose everything. But that riskiness to the heart is freedom, right? To the mind, it's fear. To the heart, it's freedom. And the thing about this game of life is that the divine support comes in when we follow the intuition that feels risky to the mind. Now, I've given you many examples over the years in this life of where I've taken a risk and I've said yes, and the divine has shown up 100%. Amazing, incredible, and has completely changed the frequency of the life. Like, I've said yes to things where I had no idea it could go so upside down, and yet saying yes to the heart's knowing has paid off in the most extraordinary ways. Because when you say yes to God, it's like God is with you, love is with you. And it's that seeming risk that we take to follow our intuition that we realize isn't actually that risky. It's actually truth. It's way more risky to keep your ducks in a row and to skirt around in fear. It's way more risky because the heart doesn't ever feel full, right? So this isn't about saying, you know, make some risky moves. And it's about opening in the frequency of the transmission field, feeling what it feels like to feel alive in your intuitive knowing. Feel what it feels like. Because again, you know, we hear these things about going outside of your comfort zone, right? And the truth is that we're never likely to find freedom in our comfort zone because we're in a bubble of safety, right? The comfort zone is where we feel comfortable. And we could translate that to say, well, that's where we feel safe. And yet that kind of safety feels comfortable to the mind and the me and the fear complex, but it feels like drowning. It feels like strangulation to the heart, right? The heart wants freedom. The heart wants the wildness, the adventure. The heart wants the fullness of itself, right? And that what the heart longs for makes no sense to the mind because it's unseen and it can't be, it's not like it's not the idea of a safe investment, right? It's not, there's not a sense of like, well, you're going to put this in and this is what you're going to get back. It's like, no, God and glory says, give all of yourself, it'll be worth it. But I can't possibly at this stage tell you how. Because that is the move of surrender, of deep devotion, because all that you're really being asked to trust is love itself. And the grace is that it's not actually kind of such a wild and risky investment because we find a frequency of this truth right here now in this moment. We find actually the golden return on any possible future investment, right? We find here now, in this moment, the freedom, the openness, the love, the wholeness. We start to feel the frequencies of joy and delight and awe and wonder. And in a way, the mind says, yeah, 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 don't be fooled. Don't be fooled. Don't just take a little sip and think that you're going to get a chalice full. Don't think that it's all golden. But the truth is that the mind that's saying, don't do it, don't give yourself to love, you'll probably lose, you'll probably risk everything, you know, you can feel it, right? It's that, it's the glass ceilings, it's the fear, it's the belief in limitation, it's the sense that you've got wings and you've never used them before, right? It's the sense that you're walking around with the wings of an eagle right? And you've never used them. You've never really opened to the full wingspan and taken your first flight. And yet there's something in you that's like, I'm sure I could fly. I'm sure. I'm sure I could fly. And the mind says, no, 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 no. Don't look behind you. Don't even get ideas above your station, right? No, no, no. You are an earthbound creature. You are a creature that's bound, and just do your best here, right? Keep it safe. But you can feel like, no, no, there's more. There's more to this life. And of course, everything that is present in our life now is exactly the means for the infinite expansion. It's not in the future. It's not like, okay, well, I've got to dig myself out of this hole, or I've got to pay this off, or I've got to work this out, or I've got to just sort out these relationship things, or I've got to get a better job, or I've just got to take care of this. It's like, no, those are all part of the strategy to not take the risk. It's about right now in this moment recognizing, okay, great glory, you've got me exactly well placed to actually spread my wings right now. I mean, we could have a wild murmuration flying party right now in this second, right? We just take flight and we just have fun. We just start to soar and dance and just find out what it is to be free and just woohoo, let's go, right? That we don't need to know, well, how are we going to organize ourselves, right? No. Does a murmuration of birds like sit down and have a lot of meetings and get it all worked out? No, they just know. They follow their intuitive knowing and they just jump off the branch and suddenly it's happening, right? The dance of life, the murmuration of life, the glory of consciousness is flowing and everything is being carried by some kind of divine order, right? So as these words come, I mean, the funny thing is that the words themselves are limiting, right? The words are limiting, but they're being carried from a frequency that's not limited. And so the transmission recognizes the potentiality and the aliveness and the possibility that is boundless, right? And so in a way, in this moment, it's about just recognizing, wow, it's so easy to identify with the fear. So easy to identify in time and space and think this is a project, a process. And of course, there's ways that, yes, we do dance in time and space, and we're not ignoring that. But our dance in time and space can be a dance of freedom. It can be just like a glorious serenade, a waltz, a cha-cha-cha, right? It can be whatever dance we want it to be, right? We remember that we're here to move the body. We're here to sing and dance and play and frolic in our way through this life. We're not here to kind of crawl and stumble, like dragging our feet. So then we come to this graced invitation in every moment to receive our true identity in God and glory, to receive our true identity in love. And that right here now, the great glorious good news is singing Alleluia in every heart. And the mind might say, oh yeah, that's easy for you to say, but that's not realistic because I have these things that I'm dealing with and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, yeah, sure, fine, fine. Life has all of its stuff going on. But are we going to get pulled in by that? Are we going to be drowned and capsized in that? Or are we going to use that as the fuel to recognize, wow, when life gets hard, when life feels like it's challenging, am I going to be capsized, or am I going to say, wow, here's an opportunity, let the magic begin, right? Am I going to see that when things get tricky, it's just like they say, you know, when life gives you lemons, make lemonade. It's kind of that frequency. It's like, what are we going to do with the lemons that life gives us, right? I'm sure we could even make more miraculous, glorious things than lemonade, right? Kind of feels a bit mediocre, lemonade, right? In the grace of God and glory, I'm sure there are many things that we could do with the lemons that life gives us. But if we recognize, like, not like, oh, lemons, we go, wow, lemons, right? And it's the frequency of receptivity. I include the lemons. I include the lemons. I just include everything in this glorious heart. And instead of saying, oh, not more lemonade, I say, wow, what is possible here? And I receive the great, glorious good news of my identity in God, in love, right now in this moment. And I open to the opportunity, the magic, that when things feel challenging, that we're at an evolutionary edge, and the opportunity and the magic for there to be some miraculous shifting in the life and an embodiment of more love. Nobody, not even the divine, can give us like the kind of investment token of a safe return that the mind is looking for. This life, in a way, this life, a spirit-led life, a love-led life, is on a certain level, a lot to the mind, a life of risk. But in a way, all that we're risking is losing our edges and our limitations and our suffering and our scarcity and our lack. And we risk losing the shame that keeps us small and the guilt that keeps us feeling like we've done something wrong. And instead of continuing to identify with the guilt and the shame, we actually just receive our identity in God. We receive that we are wired with the blueprint of the Christ as the child of God. We're wired with a blueprint template in our consciousness as the child of God, and that this life is about following the breadcrumbs of our joy to activate that template in our consciousness, following the breadcrumbs of our joy to activate that template, and to use our companionships and our adventures to bridge and collaborate, right? And to really be open to what is possible. That we're not here to keep ourselves bound in situations that feel constantly challenging, but to use the challenge as an evolutionary edge that realizes that, wow, I'm about to get a possible incredible upgrade here. Let's open to the upgrade. Let's open to the upgrade. But where we open to the upgrade isn't by trying to analyze and process, fix and change through self-criticism, through self-doubt, through making ourselves wrong. It's about like throwing ourselves all in, like a divine bungee jump, right? Just jump in. Let yourself just boing around on the divine elastic, upside down, right? Head in the canyon, right? Just, just boing, 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 and just open to the possibility of what it would be like to just jump in to life, whole self in, right? To really do the hokey cokey, right? Really, really do the hokey cokey, right? Find out, like, what is the hokey cokey after all that, right? Have I really ever shaken it all out? Have I really ever shaken my little tail feather, right? Have I really ever let it go, right? Have I really ever let myself truly go? What even is that? Is it spiritual? Is it okay? Right? There's there's the there's the uh, there's the edge, the glass ceiling, the spiritual glass ceiling that we're speaking about seeing through, right? We're seeing through the ways that we've conceptualized. What am I allowed to do in spiritual life? What am I not allowed to do? What is acceptable, right? But when we really open to the fullness of the embodiment of the divine, we realize that all life, our very own heart, is the living ashram, right? And the living ashram is, is this is this heart filled with spirit, filled with love, right? Filled with pure devotion, filled with pure surrender, and that we allow that devotion and surrender to have us surrender into our intuitive knowing and to really just allow the ducks to fly free. Find out what the ducks are capable of. Find out what is possible in this great, glorious unfolding, and to share and join in this adventure, to collaborate and to bridge and to activate each other, and really open to the magic of being one unified field, right? Following our intuitive, guided grace and recognition, flowing as life, and welcoming the eternal frequency of God and glory and the freedom and wholeness that, in a way, there's no map for. We can't work it out. We can't organize it, but we can follow the grace of the heart. We can follow the joy, the fun, the wonder, the awe. We can follow just what brings us alive, what would feel joyful right now, and not to be looking for an understanding or a return in a way that the mind would feel comfortable, but to trust that if we truly keep saying yes to the joy, to the wonder, that it's actually in the frequency of joy, of bliss. It's actually in the frequency of fun. It's in that frequency that we actually start to heal on the level of our personal life. We start to heal through the frequency of the bliss nectar, the nectar of bliss. And we actually bring healing to the collective as we drink in the nectar of bliss, of true joy, of true jubilation, of true celebration. Instead of collaborating with the fear, we actually, it's like we become the nectar. We become the nectar, and we drink in the nectar, and we become the living frequency of nectarine bliss that is an elixir on the level of frequency for the whole world, human realm of collective consciousness. That in a way that the more bliss that we can embody, the more true joy and and wonder and awe that we can embody, we become the frequency of true medicine. We could say the frequency of true medicine is light, is bliss. Bliss and light are exactly the same. As we open to the light transmission field of the unified one of God and glory, we're opening to the field of bliss, and we're drinking in the nectar. And as we drink in the nectar, we shift our frequency and refine our frequency. And we keep drinking in the bliss until we're intoxicated and in ecstatic, drinking in the bliss nectar. Like we're ecstatic in God and glory, in the mystical revelation, in the unique way that we are wired for. But as we are ecstatic and drinking in, that mystical revelation is a frequency that is a reverberant field that affects the whole. It affects our own life, it affects the life of those around us, the constellations of our of our soul, connection and embodiment in this lifetime, and it affects the constellation of the whole human realm and beyond, right? So, wow. Inspiring, right? So let the frequencies of inspiration flow in you, because as the frequencies of inspiration flow, you start to embody more of the inspiration of your own divine instructions and the heart sankalpa. And you start to recognize what is your heart intuition? What is the intuition inviting you into? And what could you say yes to where you might say no? Like, where are you saying no to life before you say yes, right? It's so easy to say, oh, no, 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 I can't do that. That's too much, or I'm too busy, or I can't afford it, or this and this and this and this. These are all the reasons why I can't do that, right? But there's this outstretched hand of God and glory that's saying, come along, beloved, come along. This is your next invitation. This is your next evolutionary edge. No, no, I can't. Oh, I wouldn't get the time off work. No, I haven't got any more time that I could, yeah, I can't afford it. I've already made a commitment. It's like, what makes your heart leap? Leap where your heart leaps and just say yes and let the logistics, let it all work itself out, right? Follow the breadcrumbs and watch the support come into place, because that's how it works in the realm of God and glory. Is you can't stand here and say, I want to see all of the stepping stones and I want to see the end point. It's like, no, it's like, let the yes of your heart say, take a step and trust that the next ones will reveal themselves. And that's the magic, that the more that we follow this kind of intuition and grace, that we start to trust more deeply. And yes, we get tested. We definitely get tested. We get bigger and bigger tests like, okay, good job, good job. What about this? Do you have the nerve for this one? Not sure about that. But right, you take the step, you say yes, you press the button, you jump in, you take the leap, and suddenly you see that it all makes sense. And yes, we will be tested. Of course we will, because we're stretching in order to expand into the full capacity that we're wired for. So we're going to feel stretched. We're going to feel stretched into an inspiration, but we're also given such incredible reward in the recognition of the heightening of our joy and capacity and easy recognition of expansion and glory, right? It's unmistakable when the heart is saying, yes, this is good, this is great, I love this, right? This feels good. I want to be here. This is where I want to hang out. This is this is what my heart feels. This is where my heart feels alive, right? So let this be the compass. Let this be, this knowing of the heart be your North Star, right? Don't let your North Star be external. Let your North Star be the compass of your joy, your aliveness, your awe, your wonder, your wow. Let the evolutionary edge and the invitation to jump and spread your wings wider than you've ever spread them before be like an edge where you're going to touch fear. But where you touch fear and you fly, you have the possibility of realizing that you have capacity beyond where you've ever stretched before, right? If those little birds, in the box, if they didn't take the risk and jump out, if they didn't go, oh, I don't know, we might land on the floor and go splat, I think I'll just stay in here. They would just keep eating worms until they got so fat that they stayed inside the box and the life would be over, right? They'd just congeal and squash together, right? until they couldn't breathe anymore in that box, right? But no, they have an inbuilt, they have an inbuilt intuitive technology that says, take the risk, little bird, poke your head out of the hole, jump, like get to the edge of the nest, right? Jump, jump. Yes, you've never done it before, but my goodness, what is this life for? This life is for jumping out of the nest, right? And we are wired for this kind of jumping. And yes, we're not kind of embodied as birds in this life. We are these humans with arms and legs, but we have this capacity to fly in our consciousness, to fly and to expand beyond, and to touch the earth and touch the sky, because our lives are a bridge between heaven and earth. Our lives are the bridge, the embodiment, the possibility of the manifestation of heaven on earth, right? Our lives are the living expression. We are the living happening of the expression of heaven on earth. We're here. Like, we are the savior. We are the salvation. Our lived experience and our integrative lived experience is the salvation. And it starts right here in our very own hearts, where we enter into that sovereignty and that knowing of the truth of who we are. And we receive the great, glorious good news of our oneness in God, of our wholeness, of the love that we are. And we stop waiting. We stop waiting for it to be dished up in a way that is palatable to be by the mind. We stop waiting for it to be dished up in a way that is comfortable for the mind. And we open to receive the clues and the invitations, right? Great glory, show me. Give me the signs, guide me. Let me recognize your breadcrumbs and let me follow along and just pick up the breadcrumbs, the holy breadcrumbs, and let me follow without knowing where you're leading me. But where you are leading me has to be into your own heart, into my own heart, into where we are one. You have to be leading me into freedom, wholeness, union, because where else is there to go, right? There's nowhere else to go but deeper into love, right? Where else could I imagine you could be leading me, right? Fear might tell me that you're leading me astray, but this heart already knows there is no astray. You can only be leading me deeper into my own heart, deeper into the mystical revelation and the glory, right? Thank you, great glory. Thank you. I receive your love. I receive your love, and I am ready to dance. I'm ready to shake my little tail feather, spread my wings, you know, do the hokey cokey and turn around. I'm ready. I'm ready for all of it, right? I'm ready just to feel that frequency in your own heart of your own readiness as we join in the readiness to say yes to this adventure, to say yes to what is being invited, what is being offered, and to receive our identity in God and glory, to receive the activation right now in this moment of the blueprint, the template of the child of God, of the Christ light, and to know that it is the road less traveled. And it gets spoken of as being narrow, a narrow path, a narrow gate. But we're so willing to leave the departure lounge and follow the narrow path and open the narrow gate to streamline our devotion and our holy yes, and to slip through the narrow gate, and to know that the life fully lived is the life lived in the Christ light, that the life fully lived is life lived in the glory, right? And so the great good news is not news from the external world. The great glorious good news is the revelation of your own heart, right? So just to receive that revelation, just to receive the revelation of what your heart already knows, and just to feel the shifting that happens in your heart and your frequency when you receive the fullness of yourself and the revelation of your very own heart, right? And then the divine timing and the organization and the invitations and the offers and the cha-cha-cha, it shows itself, it shows up perfectly, right? Mm-hmm. And you find that your ducks may not be in a row, but my goodness, they're having a glorious good time, right? Mm. So just resting here and receiving yourself more deeply, just resting here and receiving the revelation of your own heart, right? As we join here, the frequency of our field gets enlivened and refined, and we all get to sip the nectar of bliss, and more light and revelation is dancing in our consciousness, in our nervous systems. We're sipping the nectarine bliss, the light frequency codes are being activated and upgraded, right? Mm-hmm. It's like a song of light, a song of light, like a fire blazing through your consciousness and upgrading the frequencies of your cells, your atoms, the threads of your being from fear to love, blazing through like a wildfire, right? It's just blazing through the whole field, the whole landscape of your consciousness, and upgrading, repatterning, reorganizing. And all we are being invited into is just to say yes. Okay, I'm yours. Everything is yours. Everything is yours, great glory.